Okay, how you doing, everybody? This is Phil from NYRocks, and we're down here at the New Jersey Kiss Expo. We had a great expo, but this is one of the highlights of the whole evening, is actually getting to speak with Lydia Criss from Peter Criss, right?
New York City. Peter Criss's ex-wife,
right,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so tell everybody you're from New York City, and tell them about how you got to meet Peter and how you met the rest of the band, meaning Gene and Paul, and then Ace. Tell a little story about that.
Okay. First time I met Peter in a club in Williamsburg.
Mm-hmm.
I used to go to school in Williamsburg, and I was still hanging out with some of the girls from school, and they, after I graduated high school, I was just like maybe right out of high school when I met Peter.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to go to clubs, and that particular weekend, my girlfriend said, well, how about if instead of going to the Cheetah or, the Trudy Hellers or, one of the clubs in Manhattan,
right,
let's go to see this band that I'm going out with the bass player. Mm-hmm. And the band was in Brooklyn, and I said, okay, but in the daytime we went to the beach.
Right.
And it was 103 degrees, so I got burnt.
Right.
And I was feeling sick, so I wasn't going to go. And I told my girlfriend, I says, I don't think I'm going to make it tonight. And she says, no, you got to make it. She goes, I think you're going to really like the drummer. And I said, all right. I said, she goes, even if it's just for 1 hour. I had to take the train from where I lived, which is about a half-hour ride.
Right.
And I wasn't feeling good, but I said, I'll do it anyway. And I put this white dress on. I looked like I was making my communion in this dress. or being baptized, actually. And my dark hair and my red face, Peter said, as soon as I walked through the door, he fell in love. Yeah. And then, he was
You're
talking.
a very attractive lady, I might add.
Thank you.
Especially,
And especially
today.
40 years ago. Actually, it was more than 40.
Right.
But anyway, he asked me out to go. He asked me to go on a date with him to the beach again the following day, and I went with a bunch of his friends, and we hooked up, and then basically about 10 days later, this was July 3rd, so the 4th of July we spent on the beach, and about 10 days later he asked me to be his girlfriend.
Now, that was before he was even in Kiss?
Oh, way before. This is 1966.
Wow. So how old were you at
About
that
17.
17.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
All right. So then what happened after that? Now all of a sudden you got into a relationship together. Did you just get married right away?
No, we dated for 3.5 years, and I still thought I was too young to get married, and my mother thought I was an old maid already, because in those days, they 18 years old and you were getting married.
Sure.
And
you're Italian,
I was in my 20s. Yeah, I'm Italian.
And Peter's Italian.
Peter's half Italian, half Irish, English, and German. And so anyway, I wasn't even thinking about marriage, but one day we went to go see Romeo and Juliet, and he proposed to me. And
what year was that now?
That was 1969, and we got married the first month in 70. This was around May, so about 6 months I had to plan the wedding.
Wow.
And my mother made my dress. My mother made the bridesmaids. I had another.
And by that time, was he already in Kiss? He already.
No. This was 70.
He was in a band called Chelsea, right?
No, he wasn't even in Chelsea at that time. He was in a band called.
You go way back.
Well, it could have been the Brotherhood at this point, or the Sounds of Soul. Yeah, it wasn't even the Barracuda. The Barracudas was the first band. Then I think it became the Brotherhood. Then the Sounds of Soul. Then Chelsea, then Lips, and I think Vintage was somewhere in the between. And Nautilus. Nautilus was also in between there somewhere. And so I planned the wedding, and we got married January of 1970. Then in the summer of 70, that's when he joined Chelsea.
Yeah.
And he was in Chelsea for, I'd say, maybe a year, and then Lips formed. And he was with Lips for about a year, and then 72, we moved into our second apartment, and that's when we were we were putting up wallpaper, and we were putting up a mural in the living room, and his parents were actually doing it for us. And the phone rang. He had put an ad in Rolling Stone, and phone rang, and I always answered the phone. Peter never answered the phone. He hated to answer the phone. So I answered the phone. I said, Peter, it's somebody answering your ad. And it was Gene Simmons.
Yeah.
And he basically talked to him and he says, yeah, I love to dress up. I love to, I love clothes. He says, are you thin? Are you fat? And he goes, no, I'm thin. He goes, hey, gang, what am I? Am I thin? Am I thin? Am I good looking? And meanwhile, he's talking to me. Meanwhile, he's talking to me and his brother.
Okay.
We were the gang.
Yeah.
And his parents weren't paying attention. They were doing the wallpaper. And basically that was it. And then Kiss started in the beginning of in the middle of 72.
And he auditioned. Did you go down?
He auditioned.
Were you there?
Yes.
You there?
Yeah, I went with him, yes.
What a good wife.
I went with him to actually meet the band. We met in front of Electric Lady Studios on 8th Street. And they took us downstairs and then we listened to some Wicked Lester stuff. Right. And Gene, I said, well, they've got an album. They've got a record deal. Why do they want a different band? And they said they're not happy with their the rest of the band, and they wanted to go in a different direction.
Right.
So they were thinking about starting another band. And so they auditioned Peter, and I think for some reason, they made him come down a second time.
Right.
I'm not sure if I was there the second time because I was working. And
the first time they just had Peter there. Ace wasn't even a part of the picture yet.
No. Then they auditioned, and they auditioned about 100 guitar players. And that was, I think Ace was finally found in maybe around November or December of 1972. And I know he was definitely there before Christmas because he worked in a liquor store, and he got us discounted liquor for the holidays because we didn't have any money in those days. So
that was Ace.
That was Ace.
You met, and you knew Ace a little bit before that.
Well, I had met Ace at one of the rehearsals.
Oh, all right.
They started rehearsing, and then Peter came home and he said, "You're not going to believe we have a Chinese guy in the band." He says, "We finally found a guitar player," and he even said to Ace, he says, my wife cooks Chinese food. And Ace looked at him like he's off the wall because Ace is German. He's German and part Indian, American Indian. And so, I finally got to meet Ace, and then, but Peter rehearsed a lot with just Gene and Paul. Before Ace came along, he rehearsed with them, and I used to meet them after work. I'd go to the infamous loft on 23rd Street, 10 East 23rd Street. Actually, I wound up working like a couple of blocks from there many years later. But that's that was how that's how that happened.
The thing with when they first started with the makeup and the costumes, you actually had a part with a little bit with the costumes and designing them, because I remember some pictures from your book that you had posted, and we'll talk about the book too. But you had pictures in there that you had some of the costumes and you made. Actually sewn them?
Well, it wasn't the costumes that everybody is familiar with nowadays. That Maria Contessa made. And there was a person at the very beginning called Larry Legatsby. He was in the Village, and he had a design place, but for some reason, everything he made was leather, and it was too hot to dress in leather. They would sweat, and then the leather wouldn't dry in time for the next show, and the limos would stink. They would stink, and so they decided to go with the Lurex or whatever they call the spandex.
All right, so now
I did make some of the clothes, but I made the simplest stuff. The simplest stuff, like
instrumental
the Kiss
in the beginning.
The Kiss T-shirts, and I made some of Peter's hot pants, and my mother made his jackets, and I think I made a Kiss T-shirt for Gene.
And now you were with Peter for a long time. When Kiss started to get famous, you were still married to him and with him, and you kind of lived that life with them. You went to the concerts, right? You fly a lot of places with them, and then you got friends with Jeanette Freely. You guys kind of, got a little close and stuff like that. Talk about that. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was working up until the end of 1975, so I was still paying the bills. We lived in a small apartment in Brooklyn, in Canarsie, and it was a great apartment, but it was just far from the city. And eventually, I believe it was the day after my birthday, Alive went gold, and that was November 7th of 19.
People didn't realize that Kiss weren't really making the money. No. Until that came out, and then all of a sudden they just became overnight, they started really getting it.
That's when I was told, that's when I was told, when I stopped working, I was told, look for another place to live, because that place is too small. They bought us a stereo system. Well, they bought everybody in the band a stereo system, including Coin, but there was about 6 or 7 stereos, and it was like in these big giant boxes, and it took up the whole living room practically. So Coin said, before you unpack these, look for a place. So I went out looking with Sean Delaney. I went to, he was looking, I was looking. We took limos together, and it was great. I mean, I've never.
Was a friend of yours and Peter's, or it was a friend with Gene and Paul? How'd that happen?
No, Sean was with a Coin Management, but he was more our friend. Yeah, he was definitely more our friend than Gene and Paul.
And he latched on to Peter and you.
Yeah. He used to come over. We used to party together. We used to go to clubs together. Actually, when there was times when I would fly with Sean to some of the gigs, and I remember going through customs with him, and because of the way he looked, Sean was a wild-looking guy, and they stopped us, and they were going through customs going to Canada.
Wow.
And
I know about Canada. It's a little tough.
Yeah, a little tough. So they were curious to know what we were doing going to Canada. Me, the way I look and the way he looked, it was night and day. And but it was Sean was very much our friend, and he used to take me out, like when Peter was on the road. He used to take me to movies. I mean, we saw.
He would have to be your boyfriend.
No, Sean was gay, but that's why Peter didn't mind it. He trusted him. But he would take me to parties. Like they would have a party at Ashley's, which was the club that we used to always go to. And he said, "Come on, let's go out." Another time I felt sick. I said, "No, I have a fever." And he goes, "Come on, get dressed, let's go out." He says, well, "They're having a party for everybody born in the month of April." So all the Stars was there, and the Coin, and all the people that worked there. And but Peter was on the road,
and everything was like fair back in the day between all the guys, like Ace, Peter, Gene and Paul. Even though Gene and Paul started the band, things were more like fair with everybody. Everybody was kind of a little bit much equal, right? And Bill
Coin wanted it that way. He wanted it like the Beatles, like everybody. Like he wanted the fans to know everybody's name. And not just the word, Kiss. Like I mean, most people know Van Halen, but do you know the rest of the guys' names in Van Halen? Do you know the rest of the guys in Led Zeppelin? Do you know? I do, but that's because I'm in. I'm connected with the business. But he wanted everybody to know them by their at least their first names.
Now the name Kiss actually had a little bit to do with Peter, because Peter was in a band called Lips, and it kind of got mixed up with how about Kiss, right? Talk about that. No? Yeah, well, you're the one that was there, so right? Yeah, tell about it.
Paul Stanley came in one day. They were trying to figure out a name, and they were coming up with all sorts of crazy names, even curses, and the F word, and and I'm going, oh, please don't. How do I tell my parents that one? But. And I was still working, so it's like I had a job. I had to tell these people want to know what my life was all about. And anyway, so they came up with Kiss, and it was because Paul Stanley used to drive a cab, and he used to live in Flushing, and he would always be on the LIE, and the LIE has an exit on the LIE that's right near Flushing called Casino Boulevard.
Oh yeah.
So. He got the name Kiss from that. I thought it was kind of little, too feminine. I thought it was a little too feminine for them, especially that they're big guys. But they went with it because they said, Kiss is great because it's a name everyone will always remember. We could play it up with the Kiss of Death. Everything, like all different things. Like Kiss fits into look at what they've done. Kisstory, everything is with a K,
And then what are called with the logo, with the design, the lightning bolts, Ace, kind of like.
Ace,
right?
Ace designed the logo, but Paul refined it.
Yeah. Very good.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you had the history, and you've been married with Peter for so long, and then all of a sudden you went through all the 70s and the 80s were coming up, and things kind of like you broke up and split up, and what happened then,
What do you mean when we got divorced?
Yeah, you kind of got divorced. That was a hard time for you?
It was a very hard time for me because, we had just moved into Connecticut.
Right.
We moved in the end of 77, and by the beginning of 78, we were getting divorced. We were starting to plan on a family. And
Did you have any children?
No. I was, I just got back from a whirlwind trip. I actually circled the globe with Peter. That was our last trip together. We went from New York to LA to Japan to Bangkok, Singapore, Paris, and then we flew home on the Concorde.
And what year was that?
That was 1978. So I was exhausted. I was exhausted after that whole trip. And he was going to do the solo albums. So I told him, you go to, I mean, I had just gotten home. I wanted to, I had a dog and a cat. I wanted to be with my animals for a little bit. I says, you go home, you go on the road. I mean, go do the albums and I'll meet you out there. First night he gets invited. He's on the plane. He meets someone that invited him to a Rod Stewart party. And he meets Debbie, which is his second wife.
Okay.
And that was, basically, and the first time I spoke to him after he met her, I knew it. I just knew it. There's something about women's intuition, and he was not, he's a good actor, but he wasn't acting great then. I could tell there was something wrong. So anyway, then we were separated for over a year, about a year and a half, and we finally got divorced in '79. And it was hard because, I started getting used to the lifestyle. I didn't want to lose my home in Connecticut. I didn't, because of him, I didn't have a job. At that point, I had gotten, I stopped working. He wanted me to stop maybe years before I did, but I didn't until I felt it was the right time. And he, and we finally got divorced in the middle of September of '79.
Okay, so then after that, did you do anything? Did you do anything for KISS and stay involved in the music business? And then,
I took up photography.
Oh, yeah.
I went to school for photography in Manhattan, and that's when I was actually at a KISS party. I was taking pictures. This is already by '81. Yeah. I was taking pictures, and I saw.
Already out of the band.
Yes, he was out of the band. I had seen. I went to Studio 54. There was they were doing a song "I" via satellite to Italy, and I was invited to come in the afternoon, and I was invited for the party later that night. And I saw one of my friends that I knew from Bob Gruen. He took the Dress to Kill album cover, and I said, Bob, I have these great photos of Rod Stewart. What do I do with them? So he turned me on to his photo agent. And that got me started, and then I got, and when we were in Japan, I got a professional camera, and that was the beginning of my career.
Photography.
Does
it get you going again?
Yeah.
And now let's talk about the book, because you got the book right here.
Okay.
Sealed with a Kiss, because I know everybody wants to talk to you.
This is my book. It's sealed with a kiss. And it's full color. It's 384 pages. It weighs about 5 pounds.
It's a nice book.
And
it's big.
Yeah,
and it's binded.
It's got about 1,500 unseen photos, and about 120,000 word text. And it could be purchased on my website, www.lydiacriss.com. Or Amazon, if you're more comfortable with them. It depends on what you want to do, and basically that's it. It's a great book. It is the best KISS book.
And you took
I have to say it myself.
Have a lot of history.
Well, I took 98% of the photos in the book. I mean,
early days, you got a lot of credit.
Yeah, if I'm in the photo, I didn't take it, but I did take some that I'm in. I do have a tripod, and I do have the shutter, the hand shutter thing.
I want to tell the story quick, and we'll end it with that. I met you at MTV Unplugged when they came back together, and you were in the back. You were outside, and you were talking with me, and I was talking to you. I didn't know who you were, and I was like, "Oh, who's this lady?" I was like, "A cute lady, like a very pretty lady," and I was like, "Oh, that's And then you told me at the end, "Oh yeah, I was married to Peter Criss." I was like, "Look at this! I'm talking to Peter Criss's wife." But I just wanted to throw that out there. Just thank you very much. It's been a pleasure meeting you and talking to you. And you're always a great person, a friend of mine on Facebook. You can find you. So if you want to be friends with Lydia, you can hit her up on Facebook.
I do have 5,000 friends, so you might have to wait a little while for some of them
very
to
popular,
that's the maximum on Facebook. So I might have to start a second page. I'm not sure.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Pleasure's all mine.
All right.
Well, you're watching New York Rocks.
Yes.
Who rocks better than us? Who?
KISS.
Nobody. Well, KISS too. KISS rocks best too. But New York rocks, man. Nobody rocks better than us. Peace out, everybody. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.